All right. So what do we think about this one? It is backwards. So let's flip it around. What would be equivalent? What's the other one? Maybe somebody other than... What goes between them? No. Why is it or? Yeah. Greater. So that means that when it's all said and done, instead of taking where they overlap, I'm going to union these together. Proceed. So negative 2x is greater than 2, or negative 2x is less than negative 12. Divide by negative 2. Whee! So this would be what? X is less than negative 1. Thanks. Or X is greater than 6. If you draw that, negative 1 and 6. That one goes that way, that one goes that way. So what do we have? I like your style. I like your style too. You were just banned at that point. All right. That brings us to the end of 1.7. Now don't forget that the test is going to be next Monday, Tuesday. Okay? We're going to review for that test, or we're going to go through at least pieces of the practice test on Friday. So make sure that by Friday you've looked through the practice test and find your trouble spots, because we're not going to have time to go through the whole thing. Understood? So it's up to you to make sure that that review is as effective as you need it to be. All right? Now, what else was I going to say about this? In the meantime, since we do have the better chunk of the week, we're going to move on. And the material that we're going to do won't be until the Chapter 2 test, in terms of when it shows up on the test. Welcome to college. All right, so here we go. I will say this, in terms of, whoops, talking and writing doesn't always work. I will say this in terms of the difficulty of the material. A lot of kids like the Chapter 2 material better than the Chapter 1 material because it flows together a little better. Like Chapter 1 is a bunch of, you need to be able to do this in order to be successful in the class. It's a bunch of random stuff that's kind of put together. Chapter 2 is like, okay, so here's this other stuff, let's build on it. All right? So if you're feeling extremely stressed out about Chapter 1, if you can tough Chapter 1 out, Chapter 2 gets better. Chapter 3 gets hard again, but, you know. All right. Basics of functions and their graphs. Enough babbling, let's talk about this. A relation is basically a set of ordered pairs. I think we've discussed this before. All right. In terms of a relation, the first components, if you take them as a set, make up what? Don't remember. Starts with a D and ends with domain, yes. So those make up the domain. And the second components would therefore make up the range. Yes, believe it or not, this is something we discuss in college algebra. Do I need to leave it there? We're good? All right. So, here's an example. Popular U.S. last names. No. That's what we would call swing and a miss. What do you think is the most popular last name in the United States? Smith. Smith, at 1.006% of the U.S. population. So 1 out of every 100 people is named Smith. The next one I already heard, that's Johnson. Johnson at 0.810% of the U.S. population. I used to live in area code 810. That's like the Flint, Michigan area. Yeah. My parents still live there. All right. Any other guesses as to the next one? Williams. Williams is 0.699%. I'll give you a hint. The next one's a color.
Right.
Brown. Brown.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's totally purple. There are a ton of people with the last name of Purple. Any takers on the very last one?
Jones.
That man is all over it. Jones. This is a relation. All right. What's the domain of this relation? Yeah, those are the last names. So Smith, Johnson, Williams, Brown, and Jones. So that's the domain, which would mean that the range would be the percentages. So the range 1.006%, 0.810%, 0.699%, 0.621%. Did you notice that two of them had the exact same percent? You only have to list that once. Hopefully that sounds somewhat familiar. Let's do another one. All right. So, believe it or not, I did get this from somewhere. I'll show you where in a minute. And for the people watching the video, I'll have to just refer you to a page number. You can go on through My Math Lab and find it. So what we can do is we can create a visual representation illustrating the mapping of this relation. So, for instance, this can be the domain D. What would be in the domain? 0, 10, 20, 30. All right. That's going to have to be bigger because there are a bunch of things in the range. Let's go smallest to biggest, that way we can organize it. So I think the smallest one's 6.7, right? And then 9.1, 10.7, 11.9, 13.2, thank you, 14, how about 16.9, then 17.4, and 21.2. So now all I have to do is take arrows from the domain elements and map them to places in the range. So 0 would map to 9.1 and 11.9. 10 would map to 6.7, and this is strictly coming from the ordered pairs. And 9.1 again. 20 goes to 10.7 and 14. 30 goes to 13.2 and 16.9. And then 36 goes to the other ones, right? So basically at this point you have a bunch of what looks like spaghetti. But at least you've got a visual representation of this mapping.